My decision to move to Canada begins with the stories I heard from my cousin who returned from Vancouver after studying at Simon Fraser University. He told me stories of the endless possibilities available in Canada. After weighing the pros and cons, I applied to immigrate, believing that there would be a world of opportunities for my family. So, to answer your question, my perspective is just one among many that you ought to be aware of if you are considering pulling up stakes from a professional life in another country to a new life here. In a nutshell, I would never try to persuade anyone that restarting a professional life in a new land and a new language is a piece of cake. Here is the story. 3 years after applying, my wife, daughter, and I were finally given the green light and we moved to Toronto. To date, I have been taken aback by the lack of work available for someone with my credentials. Today, I'm an underemployed but highly educated Chinese immigrant living in Canada. Our decision to come was influenced by my family, professional colleagues, and experts in the immigration sector. Our decision to stay has been influenced by personal goals more than professional ambitions. Family was and is a huge influence. I was born to an established middle-class family in China. As a diligent student, I was always ahead of the pack and became an aeronautical engineering professor at one of the major universities. 5 years later, I was at the top of my game with the Chinese Space Agency. Not only was I always successful and busy, but I managed to maintain a great relationship with my parents and the extended family. I really had it made. I earned a great salary, lived in a nice apartment, and made my family very proud. Several colleagues also influenced me. I was very active in the scientific community. I had many friends who had relocated to Canada, hoping to find more opportunity. When I was in contact with them, these engineers and scientists seemed to be living great life. I know now that this was not always true, and in fact, they lied about their circumstance. Because of the great story I heard about this country, I was encouraged that life in Canada would be fuller and more satisfying than life in China. As they say, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Another major influence on me was a smooth-talking immigration recruiter. You see, I had a beautiful daughter with my wife, but I wanted a larger family. In China, I could only have one child. I also considered moving to the US. However, I was concerned that I would be obligated to adopt American culture, which I was not particularly fond of. An immigration recruiter from Canada told that immigrants in America are encouraged to give up their cultural identities and the traditions in favor of American values. He told that Canada was a place where immigrants were welcomed into cultural mosaic, which preserved their own values and beliefs. Moreover, he told that Canada supported a diverse population of immigrants with a strong Asian presence in larger cities. Many of the recruitment materials contain enthusiastic reports of Canadian life, written by cosmopolitan Chinese immigrants. I should have known that you can't tell a book by its cover, but these beautiful publications assured me I would be immediately welcomed and quickly established in Canada. Okay, so I've told you how I was convinced to emigrate from China. Once I was convinced that my professional and personal goals could be reached, I persuaded my wife to consider moving and outlined the benefits it would bring to our daughter's future and our chances of having more children. Although my wife was hesitant in the beginning, she too was persuaded by the documentaries on Canadian life from the immigration recruiter. She had seen the images and the promises of jobs, school, and a better life in Canada, and wanted these things for our family. Further, the possibility of having more children excited her. She remembered the suffering and the shame that her parents had gone through when they were forced to surrender her younger sister to an adoption program. We agreed. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. As they say, as you can see, the decision to move was not based on any one thing, but on a number of opportunities which we believed were not possible in China. Was our decision the right one? I felt confident that with my educational background, work experience, and the professional references, I would have no problem securing a professor position within a year of my arrival in Canada, and taking advantage of the great opportunities that awaited us. So it was with a great deal of surprise when I discovered that my prestigious Chinese education was not recognized by Canadian universities. In contrast to what some of my past colleagues had said, I learned the truth. Many were not working in prestigious positions like they held in China. Moreover, my acquaintances were unable to help me find work. They had made promises to me which they were in no position to fulfill. In the beginning, I struggled to make sense of my new reality. You've heard it said that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So I tried to put things in perspective as much as possible. And I told myself that I needed to work as hard as possible to achieve the same success I once had in China. I visited immigration centers, attended job fairs, sent resumes, and called potential employers with little success. I didn't even get to first base. I was a respected professor in my country with consulting possibilities with the Chinese Space Agency, and now I am nothing. All in all, I would urge prospective immigrants to look at the big picture. Perhaps only professional success can give you the self-esteem on what your personal happiness depends. If so, not being able to re-enter your profession could feel like failure to you. But if your sense of self-worth doesn't come only from your job and your financial status, you may be able to find happiness even if you end up in another career. My advice is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Now I work the night shift at a local gas station in Toronto that is my adopted city. I spend my days studying at Centennial College, which I am earning a certificate in computer networking. The dream I had to work as a professor in Canada, it is unachievable. I have come to realize that I would have to complete 6 to 8 years of schooling over again. This is financially impossible for me and my family. However, there is one thing that gives me hope. My wife and I now have a son and another daughter whose citizenship has been Canadian from birth. We have a beautiful family of 5. This was not possible in China. I want my children to enjoy all the professional success that I couldn't quite reach it. I do have some concerns about Canadian life for my daughters and my son, which look Chinese and not white. I worry they may not get all the opportunities what white children may get. I worry that maybe if my oldest daughter that was born in China spoke perfect English, maybe she would have more opportunities. I am not sure how much I should worry about this. Even though I worry, there is nothing I can do about it anyways. Every evening, where my children do their homework with me, I just try to encourage them to work hard and study hard. My children are my life. I believe doors will open for them who are closed to me. So, was I right in persuading my family to immigrate? Yes. Although I often think about returning to China, I don't regret coming to Canada.